Hey guys, Chris here, back with how to make a custom knife sheath. As you may notice, this is a different sheath. I haven't worked on the other one. Again, I had some other projects I had to finish up, this being one. However, this is still a knife sheath and it's very similar, so I will finish up this little series on how to make a knife sheath using this one. So, what I have just done to it after doing my tooling here is I let this dry for a good 24 hours and I liberally rubbed on some super sheen. First coat, just used a sponge, got it on there, made sure I got it down in all the little cracks and crannies and crevices, and then once this dries, we will come back and do a lighter coat of super sheen, and I will actually show you guys, I'll show you me doing that one, and then I'll show you how I antique it, and then we will get to the stitching. Guys, I want to apologize ahead of time. There are a couple sections of this video where it's extremely difficult to see what I'm doing because I didn't pay attention to where I had the camera aimed. I fixed that after that, but just to inform you, be ready for that. Okay guys, so I got my sponge, got my super sheen. And there you have it, second coat. Alright guys, so I'm putting the holes in. Now up here I'm going to have a rivet, so I've got a hole there. Now I'm going to do a little bit different stitch on this. I'm trying something new, but it's going to still the same way of putting your holes in. Now you can use an awl to put these holes in. You can use a drill bit. Anything you can use to get a hole through the leather will work in your stitching. There's just other ways that speed it up, and I'm using some chisel type. There's some with some holes, all different sizes. They make crimp punches. I always check to make sure I've gone through. And that's all there is to it, guys. Once you get down here, you want to get this somewhat moist here in the middle, and then fold this over and match your lines up on this side. And that way when you stitch them together, this side matches that side. Hey guys, I wanted to tell you one tip. So I'm doing this turn right here. Well, the tip is, 1, go to a smaller punch. 2, don't do 2 holes and then 2 holes. Go 2 holes, then put 1 prong into one of the existing holes and punch 1 new hole. And then for your 4th hole, do the same thing. So if you were doing a long straight row of just normal stitching, you would punch your 4 holes and then move down and put this in the last existing hole and be punching 3 new holes, and then do the same thing over and over and over. And that will keep your lines a lot straighter and make it look more uniform when you're done. Got it somewhat moist. The reason you want to do that is it'll keep it from cracking out here. Now, I'd also like to say I have already pre-done this before, bent this over, so before I sealed it. That way the leather kind of already had that stretch in there, which is just going to minimize any splits in here. But you just want to slowly work it over. Now just slowly work it like you would a new baseball glove. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark my holes that I've done here going down. And then that will, these should line up pretty close if I've got those. And then I'll straighten this back out. I'll punch all my holes on this side, and then I'll let this dry again, and then I'm going to antique this. And you can use anything to mark your holes. You could use a pencil if you wanted. You could use an awl. I find a pencil works good. It leaves an indentation as well as a colored mark. And there you go, you can see what I mean there. And so what I'll do is I'll start my holes with a smaller punch from this side, but then I'm going to take the same punch I used on this side and finish them going that way. That way it has the same look versus having the punched out look that the bottom has. We are to the antiquing stage. I like to use gloves because this stuff will stain your fingers for quite a while. So I'm using EcoFlow antiquing gel, and I'll just put quite a bit on here with the sponge. Now when you put this on, you want to make sure you get it down into every little crack, every indentation, every little dip. And that way when you go to wipe off the excess, it stays down in there and it gives it that antique effect. I always shake this stuff. And don't be afraid to add more. It's always good to make sure you get it all coated the first time around. But you can always come back again and redo it. Okay. Okay, so once you got that good, you want to come back with a dry paper towel. Now I use a paper towel because it doesn't tend to get down in the cracks of what you tooled into it. And then we'll let this sit for a little bit, and I'll show you. You can see the difference that made. And I'll let this sit for a little bit. Excuse me. And then we'll come back with a moist paper towel and wipe off any excess that's still on there. And one thing I like to do is I like to take, while I still have some on the sponge, and I like to go around my edges and dye those up. And then we'll come back with the paper towel and wipe off what we got up on the sides. And there you have it, guys. And then I'll just come back with a wet paper towel here in a few minutes and lightly wipe on the top. And then we will let that dry. And then we'll come back and we'll dye the back side. Alright guys, it's time for the damp paper towel. And you don't want to press this very hard. You just want to lightly wipe on here. And that's all there is. And then we will let that continue to dry. And then stitch her up. Well, we got to dye the inside. And then we'll stitch her up. I'd like to point out, guys, now is the time to go around and make sure that this got down into everywhere you need. I just had to fix the C, and I see another tiny little spot that I need to fix. And I'm just using the paper towel to get this down in there. And just double check all of it. Because it's a lot easier to fix it now than if you let all this dry. Alright guys, time to dye the inside. Now I'm using EcoFlow Bison Brown. Now I like to pour it into a different container. That way I don't contaminate the original. And then I use a wool dauber. And that's pretty much all there is to it, guys. I'm just gonna go back through on a couple spots, make it match, get rid of some of the dauber strokes, and then we'll let this dry and she'll be ready to stitch together. I am currently doing the stitching. Now another thing I've done through part of this area is I've done some of the burnishing, and all I do on the burnishing is I add some of this to it all along the edge. Here, I'll just show you real quick. So just lightly add a little bit of that, just like yay. I generally let it dry up a little bit, but then you just take this, since I do it by hand, and just start burnishing it. That's all there is to that. Quite a bit of work. But I'm going to burnish these after I stitch them together. That way they burnish together. Now stitches, there's every stitch you can think of. I've kind of come up with my own that I normally use. It's pretty strong. It's basically a double stitch with a single stitch running back through it. But you can get or learn all different types of stitches, and just the biggest thing on your stitching is to remember to keep it tight, especially when hand stitching. Doesn't really matter what you use for thread. Could be, you know, sinew or wax thread, artificial sinew. Doesn't matter what you use, just make sure you keep everything nice and tight, and that way it'll be strong and you won't have to worry about it coming undone later. Stitching's a little tedious, so just plug at it. Take breaks for your fingers and such when you need to. And eventually, you'll be done stitching. But alright guys, that is basically all there is to making a knife sheath. I didn't tell you guys everything. If you guys are interested in it, I suggest you go start making them. Learn hands-on. That's the best way to learn. But alright guys, this was Chris here with how to make a custom knife sheath. And I will come back with you guys one more time to show you the finished product. Alright guys, there you have it. One finished custom knife sheath.